Loving God, we thank you for another wonderful opportunity to meet and gather, to study together, to share with one another as well as we travel through these climactic times in Earth's history. It's such a privilege for us to be part of this. And please just, yes, we welcome you and we invite you into this gathering and ask for your blessing in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to pick up from where we left off last time I spoke. So remember how to use this one. Share. Hopefully everyone can see that now. You just check. Yep, that should be fine. All right, so I've zoomed right out, so don't worry if you can't see the details. That's on purpose. I'll zoom in soon. I just wanted to give everybody a kind of big picture of where we were, where we're going. So the purple bit at the top I've got as review. That's what we did last time. Just as a refresher, I had talked about, basically the study was about putting Daniel 3 on the line using some of my, I guess, principles that I was using with the stories. And then just before I went into Daniel 3, I also took us through what I had already done about Daniel 2 and 5. So that's up there in the purple section. The rest is what maybe we'll get through today. Maybe we won't get through it all. I don't know. So what we'll do is we'll start with chapter 6, doing that on the line. We can then compare that with Daniel 3. We'll go into looking at some of the numbers and the symbols in the stories as well and what we can gain from that. And then I've got a summary at the bottom. So to start with, I'll just remind us what we did so we can sort of remember and get the context back. So that was Daniel 2 and 5. We know that those two stories are about the same theme. And then we can see here with the story that we have the same pattern in both. Even when you break down the story itself, it follows the same steps. There's a message that arrives or a messenger. There's a growing increase of understanding about I guess the problem, that there is one, and that we need an interpretation of that. It climaxes there at Sunday law, where the ability to interpret that is given to Daniel. And then the rest of the story is about him explaining what that is. So there's an increase of knowledge about what the vision meant. And then at the end, we see the climax of the whole thing where it's fulfilled. So we see Babylon falling there at the end, and a different outcome for Daniel. So that's a little review of that. Here it was just comparing the first half with the second half. This bit was about looking for a chiastic structure to see if there was a turning point in the story, and it kind of seems to be in both cases there is, and I can get some themes out of that are being about power and control. And then there's some symbology with the numbers. And if anybody saw Elder Paminda just yesterday, he also mentioned 2520 again, and that it's a symbol of covenant. So you see here even 2 and 1000, they mean covenant as well. And 2520 is also covenant. So the chapters are consistent with the symbology with the numbers in the themes as well. So very nice. So what we did after that, we know Boston, Concord, Exeter pretty well by now. We went through Daniel 3. So I'll run through this quickly as well, because we're going to compare Daniel 6 with this one. The beginning of the story, a new idea arrives. The king gets an idea to make an image. We understand that it was suggested to him, but he gets this idea that he's going to make it gold from top to bottom. That develops, becomes visible as you see it on the plane. Then you have symbology of crying out there. basically it's like an agitation. They're going to have to bow. Sunday law is when that happens. That's like the crisis, I guess, or the outcome. And that's when we line that up. That's where I've lined that up. We have a death decree there. So like that there, that also increase of knowledge, because the king is starting to realize that there's something special about these three, because this is going to develop into this like forcing everyone to worship God, their God. So here he's getting an increase of knowledge about that this is the real God, I guess. And then there's a coming out, symbols of a coming out. And there's a message that goes to the world there, which I've lined up with the loud cry. We talked about how 7 times and fire can be symbols for Babylon, and there's a coming out of Babylon there. And then the end of the story, there's this worldwide decree, or a decree to all peoples and nations to worship God. Also, this lines up with what we already know about where the angel starts, the message starts and ends, according to the line, the reform line structure we already had. Did anybody, because this is just a quick little flyover, but I'll pause there. Did anybody have any questions on that? Not comments, but questions? Okay. So I'll slow down a little now and we'll look at chapter 6. Feel free to have your Bibles handy as well. And we'll start at the start, and it's fine. We can have interaction as well, like we did last time. So I'll zoom in. All right, we're going to go back to the beginning of the line again. Or not the beginning of the line, but the beginning of this line where I've started at 2001. And I've got the question there, how does Daniel 6 begin? So what is the dynamic between Daniel and the princes? So does somebody want to share? And I've picked verse 4, might be a key one. So does somebody want to unmute and suggest how they understand that? Graham, are you there?
Yes.
Can you just remind us what Daniel 6 is about, and then maybe how the story begins? You're muted. I don't know if you meant to bump, if you bumped that.
Daniel 6.
Daniel 6. I can remind us if you want.
Yeah, off the top of my head, it's just not coming to my memory. I'll have to open my Bible in order to do it.
Okay, that's fine. I'll give you the topic, and then you'll know how the story starts probably. So it's the lion's den story. All right. Anyone else want to remind us how this story begins? What about Taylor? Are you there, Taylor?
Yes, I'm here. I'm also trying to look at the Bible.
Okay, you can take a minute to do that.
So, Catherine, I'm just not quite sure on what your question is.
Oh, it's just here on the screen. Can you see the screen? Hopefully everybody can see the screen.
It's about the lion's den and the prayer.
Yeah. So, yep, we've got the lion's den. So anybody else want to
prayer?
The deliverance
prayer?
of Daniel from the lion's
Yep.
den.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, and there's a prayer. That's right. Yeah. So how does the story start?
Sorry, I was just going to
Maybe
say.
read verse 4.
Okay, I was just reading, and I was going to say that that basically it started with the fact that there was Darius had set over the kingdom 120 princes, and then they sought to find a problem with Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they couldn't really find any fault, so that left them with a bit of a dilemma. So that was, I think.
Okay, thank you for reminding us of that. That's great. So hopefully, yeah, it's like sometimes when we've got all the different chapters, kind of good to remind ourselves of where we are in all of this. We know the stories well. I know everybody knows them. So what I'm looking for is a Boston. So it's the beginning of the story. We're looking for something that arrives, an idea or something like that. So we've got this dynamic between Daniel and the princes. There's some unhappiness there, right? Why are the princes unhappy?
Daniel's the boss.
Yeah, because hopefully we're okay to say that they're jealous of him. They don't like that he's been chosen above them, basically. So
Catherine,
yeah.
would you also suppose that he was a foreigner and that just kind of added to their wounds?
I think so. Oh, jealousy. Thanks, Taylor. I said that in the chat as well. Yes, I agree. I think that's a component probably as well. Okay, great. So the princes and presidents, they desire to bring him down, and the idea will come to a climax. So we see an idea arrive. They're jealous of him. So we've got the jealousy there. And as mentioned in the chat as well. So here's our early verses of the story. And if you go to Prophets and Kings as well, it talks about that jealousy, that feeling that they have, or basically hopefully we can agree, this is the seed. If we're going to have a seed of the beginning of this, it's going to start here. There's that jealousy, that thought, that feeling, and they want to, they have this idea that they want to find occasion against Daniel. So I've marked that there as like a Boston characteristics, because that's where the idea arrives, but we can't see anything yet. So hopefully everybody's okay with that. All right, so next up, what's the characteristics of a Concord? So anybody wants to just mention a few things that might be happening here, and what develops from the prince's idea. So you could look at verse 5. Molly, are you there? I've got assembled together. Thanks, Taylor, in the chat. Yeah, feel free, anybody put it in the chat. I've got it open here. But yeah, so as long as I look to the side, I'll see it. Assembled together. So there's an assembling together at a Concord. Yep. So let's have a look at what happens in the next verses. I've summarized it there as the jealous ones. Yeah, consultation. Thank you. Yeah, the jealous ones gather and conspire. They develop a plan. So there's this kind of a conspiring together. They make a plan. It's still not formal yet. This is still developing. So the conspirators have now devised a scheme after having no idea. Yeah, they didn't have an idea at the beginning. That's right. But now they've developed it. So we can see an increase. Conspiracy princes versus Daniel. So we're seeing already two groups forming there as well. There's verse 5, which is the one I've placed here, and Prophets and Kings, it gives us this bit of detail. Counselling together, they devised a scheme. There's also this number of 30 days that appears here at this part of the story. This is when they have this idea, they're planning to do this for 30 days. So I've picked up that number and placed it at this way mark. And we'll look at the numbers a bit later. So that's why I think that's an increase of knowledge or a concord. The next bit of the story. So what are the characteristics of an exeter, and how has the idea developed by Daniel 6 verse 7? So it'd be great if people can participate. Maybe have a look if you've got your Bible there at verse 7. I have it here as well. I'll show everyone in a minute, but what happens there?
They're starting to implement the plan that they had put together where they could trap him.
Let's have a look.
Formalised the trial law.
Formalised? Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right, so yeah, they have the decree ready. So it's formalised, they've documented it basically. They have it ready and they try to deceive the king here. So the statute is ready to sign, it's formalised, and the people were given a message to do something unrighteous. So I've got this, whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. So there's like an agitation of what's about to happen there. So that's why I've marked that there. All right, so shut door. The characteristics of a shut door. Normally we see two groups or some kind of climactic sort of crunch time. And so what happens next in verse 11, I'll do just to keep us moving along. So what happens next? The king signs the decree, and some people pray to Darius because it comes into effect, I think, as soon as he signs it. Some people pray to Darius, but Daniel prays to God. So we know that what happened in the story. So we've got two different groups, those that pray or don't pray, and Daniel. The reason I've got and don't pray is because if you remember when Elder Terry taught about this, not praying also was part of this, like not doing anything, not participating. So bowing to the image is bad. What we've got up in the line from the other chapter, that lines up with Daniel bowing to pray, which is good, but we have similar characteristics there. Compare the two stories like that. There's a decree to worship that goes into effect for both of the stories. Actually, what I was going to do, I think I forgot about this bit, was to take us, I have put chapter 3 here as well so that we can compare it. So I'll go back. When we had the beginning, so we had that jealousy and that idea arrive. That lines up with the king getting the idea to make the image. So a new thought arrives. The next one was the plan develops. So we had the image visible on the plane, and that lined up with this conspiracy or that plan. So it's still developing. The next one, which I lined up together, was the plan is formalized. So the herald gives the cry and there's instructions there what to do, is lined up with that decree, which says what people are going to have to do, what the rules are. The next one here, so I've got there that's when that music plays and some people bow to the image. So you can see how they're similar. And so I line them up together. Going back to this one, the decree to worship me, the king or the kingdom in both of the stories. Objective is more local than at the end of the chapter for both of the stories as well. So it's still like it's one long story, it's still growing. So here I've just highlighted the key bits from the verses, which I thought were pertinent to this point there. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, oh yeah. So down the bottom, I'm going to now take us to Boston characteristics as well. So let's just pause for a sec. So we're here where we'll go to this story. Daniel prays to God. So something arrives here. It's hard to see, but something new, because we're going to have the second part of the story. So this is Boston. So what new thing has arrived here? Okay, so this is when the king recognizes that the snare was motivated by jealousy over Daniel. So the king has this understanding now, has this idea. So I think I've got the passage down below. We'll look at it. Actually, let's delete all this. All right, let's have a look. So verses 14 and 15, and I've got a spirit of prophecy quote in between as well. The king set his heart on Daniel, and Ellen White said he saw that it was not zeal for kingly glory and honor, but jealousy against Daniel that had led to the proposal for a royal decree. So you see that what the king is thinking here, and that will develop as the story progresses. So in both of the stories at this time, the kings in both stories, they realize that there's something special. So in the chapter 3, the king could recognize there's something special about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He kind of just thought there was maybe going to be some supernatural power happening here. He wasn't sure. Or even just that they were righteous and they would do, they behave differently to others. So both of the kings are recognizing something special about these Hebrews or whoever these people represent in application. And this new idea is developing to that final outcome, which ends up being that worldwide decree. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. So moving on, the next part of the story. So, all right, we've got repeating symbol 2020. What happens next in the story? So it's a bit similar to the one we did before. Maybe I'll do this one first. Actually, it's probably better to stick with this one. All right, so we've got another death decree. So remember, we had that up here as well. We had this death decree, and the innocent are going to be thrown into the fire, no hurt. In this one as well, the innocent one is going to be thrown into the lion's den and no hurt. So it's both of the stories have a death decree of innocent people. No harm comes to them in both of the stories. Jesus or an angel is with them in both stories. And I understand that great controversy places this after close of probation, but we also know that the death decree symbol repeats. So there's the verses there, verse 16, the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. So you can see there, like I mentioned in the bit before, that there's this idea that the king recognizes that there's something about him. And so you can see here he's saying it as well out loud. So it's developing. All right, next up, loud cry. So what is the loud cry and what does it say? It's a bit like last time, come out of Babylon. And so what happens next in the story? There's a cry and a coming out of the lion's den, which, similar to this other story, I have taken as symbolic of Babylon. So let's go back to that one. So there's the coming out of the 7 times hot fire, and then there's the coming out of the lion's den. So yeah, loud cry, symbology, as far as I'm concerned.
Babylon is the lion.
Babylon is the lion, yeah. Got a few verses here as well. So, yeah, we had that symbol of the lion in Daniel 7, Jeremiah as well. So, yeah. Okay. And then close of probation. So the story comes to an end. So there's a decree. I'll go down here. Darius wrote unto all the people, nations and languages that dwell on all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. Make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. So that's similar to what we did up here for this other story, which had the same sort of decree. Different king, but similar decree to worship God. So the first half of the story was a decree to worship the king or the kingdom. And then the second half of the story is a decree that ends up telling you to worship God. So it's different, but same. Yeah, hopefully we can see that. Okay, did anybody have any questions on any of that? I think it should be clear.
Katherine, can I just ask a question?
Yes, please.
Did the king make a very careful investigation before he signed the decree? Because it sounded like that he made a mistake signing the decree, because later on he found out there's a scam there or set up against Daniel.
Maybe
It looked like
they
he didn't do his job properly.
yeah, and there could be some lessons from that. In the literal story, he might have been flattered and a bit rash, and not really thought that through.
Because he knew once he signed the decree, he cannot do anything to help his friend.
Yeah, that's right. So he realizes his mistake, and he also realizes he can see it's jealousy that caused it. The reason I've called that out as well is he's comparing two groups of people. The king is, all through this, you see these two sort of these comparisons going on. So he recognized that they were jealous. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, but hopefully that's fine, Molly. Yeah, so basically, oh, hello. Yep. Wally?
It's me actually.
You've got two devices going. You'll need to either put one in a different room or turn it off.
Yes.
I'll give you a moment.
In the background. All right.
Okay, I can hear you now.
That, yeah, I was saying that is the power of conspiracy.
What is the power of conspiracy?
Conspiracy theory, yeah, because the king was deceived because of the conspiracies.
Conspiracy theories.
That's the power of the conspiracy theories, yeah.
Interesting thought. Okay. So, yeah, I don't want to rush on. Then if people do have questions or comments, so feel free. Otherwise, I'll keep going. Okay. So, yep, I've laid that sort of out along the whole line. And now what I've done here is just taken the two part, like the part A, basically the first part, the decree to worship the king or the kingdom, which is the first part of the story. And then the second part, the decree to worship God. And I've just put them one on top of the other just so we can compare it. Both of them have the idea arrive. The king gets an idea about the image. The princes get the idea about their plan. They hate Daniel. They're jealous. And then in the second half, the king thinks that something special about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or that Daniel is special. So somebody's getting an idea for all of that. And then it develops this gathering there in the first half. Of the second one is the king is worried that God will act for the so let me just remember. Okay, yeah, so that's when they're in the fire. So the king is worried. Remember, he gets the really strong soldiers to take them to the thing. So he's worried that God will act on behalf of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But in the chapter 6, Darius is hoping that God will act and save Daniel. So you can see they're kind of opposite to each other, but they're similar. There's still this kind of expectation, but one is worry and the other one is hope. So hopefully we can see that. But that how these things develop and how they line up. In the first half of the story, there was those instructions to bow, but not yet. Don't do it yet, but there's instructions. And the same one, there's instructions to pray, but not yet. We see that decree. It's formalized, but it doesn't come into action yet. And this second half, there's awe. So the king is like jaw drops, come out of the fire or calling them out of the den. So there's this sense of awe. The idea is consolidated. So You can see that sort of similar. They're similar and different in the two parts of the story. And then at the end of both parts, you get the fulfillment of the climax. Some bow, some don't, some pray, some don't. Or at the bottom, you get the decree, which is the unrighteous decree, but you also get this promotion or the prospering. So you get those good and bad compared to each other. So, yeah, just sort of showing the repeating pattern in a different way. Now, this is the chiasm. So, again, a bit unusual to do this, but something I did to see what I would find. So I'll share it with you. The midway point of this story is the key, I guess, the event, like if you're a child or something like that, your sort of suspense moment is that middle bit of the story. What are they going to do? Bow or not bow, or pray or not pray? And this, when they do this or don't do this, then things in the story shift. It's like a sort of like a twist in the story, or it turns. So what happens before and after? So just sort of take us and compare the two waymarks that we pair up as a chiasm and just see if there's anything. Yeah, okay, I'll start with chapter 3. So we're looking at both chapters now because we've done 3 and 6. I've laid them out. Now I'm going to continue with both of these chapters and do this chiasm. So on the left side, we've got threats about fire and threats about the lion's den. But after this event happens, after this turning point, we see it implemented. So we see in the verses, you see here in verse 6, you've got this same phrasing really, cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And you see that on both sides, but one of them is warning and the other one is actually doing it. So it's, a chiasm, so you can see it's a mirror or it matches. And again, in Daniel 6, it's similar as well. So you can see the same phrases there. I'll just delete that. Cast into the den of lions and cast into the den of lions. So I'm identifying that as like a mirror. Moving out, we've got, interesting to me as well. So let's compare Daniel 3. Actually, I shouldn't have deleted that other one because then I could have hidden the one in the middle. Let me just cover it up so we don't get too much information. Otherwise, it's too much information overload. So I'll just hide that. Keep that in the middle so you can see that. All right, so on this side, what are we seeing an image of? So we're seeing the image of Nebuchadnezzar, this I'll say king of the north, but we know, this is like a usurped term. So we see the image of the king of the north, let's say, I don't know, worldly king of the north, something like that. And then on this side, we see something different. It's not an image, it's the form, the actual form of Christ. And we see Jesus in the fire. And they're different. One is good and one is bad. So, yeah. We see that. I think it's like a matching but different type of symbol. All right, so read them. Next up, let me see if I can hide that one again. So I'll just pull this away so we can focus on the next bit. All right, and the one here. No, actually, I haven't finished that yet. Let me go down here. I think I've got Daniel 6. Yeah, here it is. All right. So on this side, we've got this group of princes counseling together. They're doing their conspiracy. So we see their characteristics. Their characters are not good. They're devising and scheming, conspiring together. They're doing something bad. But on this side, in this verse, for Daniel, we see innocency is mentioned. So it's talking about his character is innocent, and you contrast that with their character, which was bad, evil, jealous. I don't know what word to use. Jealousy isn't bad in and of itself, but Deceit, maybe we'd use sort of deceitful character. So we've got bad characters in both of these stories on the left-hand side. You can see if you take an image as a reflection of somebody's character, their personality, you can see there that on the left, both of the stories have that. And on the right, you've got Jesus is good also, and Daniel is good and innocent. So you see those contrasts. Without this midpoint in the story, you probably don't get to that. So you have to have that turning point. I'm just reading the chat. Verse 6-7 gives the idea that the king was flattered by the princes and what they conspired against Daniel. That seems to account for no examination into what the princes were doing, and then they commended themselves by Daniel 6:13. So he was flattered. Thank you. Answering that earlier question. Okay, so next one. Maybe else if I can add this one and then make this one go down. Okay, here we go. So chapter 3. So I've got on the left self-exaltation and jealousy, and the jealousy of the princes at the beginning. So we can see in both of the stories there's that self-exaltation at the beginning. And I've got these verses here. So, but his heart was not yet cleansed from worldly ambition and a desire for self-exaltation, does the king. And then this same characteristic is jealousy of the princes. But on the opposite side, what's contrasted with that is this not self-promotion, but being promoted still. So similar but different. There's this promotion of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel prospered as well. He's also basically gets rewarded at the end of the story, but he's not doing it itself. It's not self-promotion or self-glorification. So you can see a contrast there as well. Hopefully these princes are sort of lifting themselves up as well. So this whole theme, what we see sort of through these chiasms is that it seems to be about their characters, their natures, and how that's revealed through this. So does anybody have any questions on that? Sorry, I kind of messed that up a little bit, so it was a bit difficult to see, but I've tried to color code it as well so you can sort of compare them, how the story sort of ends up going, it takes 4 steps in one direction, and it takes those same sort of steps in reverse direction as you go out to the end.
It's me, Catherine.
Yep.
Can you just zoom out a little bit so that you've got the whole image and just pause it for, like, as in you're just moving fairly quickly. That's
you want to take a screen capture? Or?
Yeah, I'd like to. If that's and it also just makes it a little bit easier to grasp the full picture too when you're looking.
Is that text? If the text is that big now, can you read that? Okay, because then I don't have to zoom in so much if it's.
I think it's probably difficult for a lot of people to read. I can read it, but it's not. I'm not the measure for that. So I understand you need to zoom in periodically. It's just more the moving quickly in between. Constantly. Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, thank you for zooming in.
That's fine. Hopefully that's long enough. Have you had a chance now?
Yeah, no, all done. Thank you.
All done. Okay, great. It's just in the chat, condemned. Oh, instead of commended, yeah, condemned. Thank you. All right. So the numbers now.
Catherine,
yes.
You can see now that the king make his decision based on all the information that brought to him by the princes. So if the information is wrong, he'll make a wrong decision, isn't it?
Well, so if you're talking about application, I'm not going to do application, but in the original story, in the literal story, normally kings, they have their own mind as well. They have advisors. They don't have to do what an advisor says. That's a literal. But yeah, it doesn't help when they give him bad information. Certainly if it's deliberate. It wasn't accidental wrong information. This is a scheme. So
Made up, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
But yeah, I'm not able to do application and stuff. I'm sure to get it wrong. I'll try. So symbols, numbers. Okay, so these are, I like these two because I just find that fun. All right, so the numbers that we get, 360 and 120. So let's just have a look at where that comes from. So in verse 1, 3 score cubits and 6 cubits. So it doesn't give you the volume. It doesn't give you like the 3 dimensions. It just gives you 2. So I've just taken the 2 because that's what it's got here. And if you multiply those numbers together, you'll get 360. So that's where I get 360 from. So we'll look at the meaning of 360. And then we get 120 here because of the 120 princes. So we've got that there. Now I've also got what kind of like a summary of what, sorry, I'll stop zooming in so much. There you go. So on the left, the number 360 is, I'll explain in a second, but I think that they resemble time setting and worldwide. I'll get into the details why, maybe you can guess. And 120 is probationary time, and also it means worldwide. At the end of the story, let's just have a look at what happens at the end. So there's that worldwide decree. So you can see worldwide is also at the end of the story and a fulfillment of the time. And at the end of Daniel 6, you also get a worldwide decree. So we see sort of worldwide here as well, which matches that number 120 at the start. And we also have this verse 25, and it's would be almost, probably most people wouldn't pick this up. It's got the word dur here, D-U-R, where it says dwell. So when the king says to everyone that dwells in all the earth, that word dwell is dur, and dur means worldwide. It's like Jura, the plain of Jura. It's the same word, so we'll look at that as well. So worldwide comes at the beginning and the end through the symbols, and at the end of the story, you see that it is worldwide as well. So if I just want to sort of show you why those numbers, I think they mean those things. So why time? So the 360-day year principle is to do with time setting. We understand that that's a principle that was used for August 11, 1840 for predicting that. So I have some quotes there about how they used that principle to make that prediction and what it meant. So yeah, so I don't know. A lot of this is familiar to us as well, how that works. So you can see there that it's connected to time setting. It certainly was a key that helped them unlock that. And August 11, 1840 was also an event we mark at that waymark as well. 2001, it lines up. So that's that one. 360 years of pagan Rome. Okay, even for a time scattering, time of trouble, 1260. So see here an image of the whiteboard that was done before. How 360 is here at the top. It lines up with the 1260. We can see that this starts at the Worldwide Sunday Law as well. So you see that ties in nicely with the waymarks that we've placed that in. So we see 360 at the beginning with the measurements of the image, and then we see 360 come at the end. 360 degrees of a compass. So just looking at the literal in the world, 360 can mean worldwide, because we just know if you turn around in a circle, you've done 360 degrees, you've seen everything. Also 4 winds and 4 corners. So those symbols of 4 winds and 4 corners, if you look at all the corners and you add them all up, they will add up to 360, because it means everything. It's just a different perspective on everything. 4 winds means everything, because it comes from every degree of the compass. So north, south, east, west. So I've got a little illustration down here just to sort of show how they tie up together. That's 4 corners and the 360 degree. It just means everything, the whole world. And I've got, let's stop moving around as well if you want to see the whole screen, although it's a bit small. Basically some verses and there's quite a few, where it mentions four winds and what context that means, and how it means, all directions, everywhere, four corners of the earth. What's this one? A panoramic view was presented. Oh, when Jesus was on the top of the mountain, he had a panoramic view. You could see everything, all the kingdoms of the world. So this whole view of 360 from the top. So, yep, that's why I think 360 can mean worldwide. And this one, meaning of Dura and Dua. So at the beginning of chapter 3, they're two different chapters. You've got Dura. So that's the Hebrew word there. It means circle or dwelling. So similar to what we did with the 360, it's a circle, it's a dwelling. And so I got here some research as well. Just a bit of information, and that Dura means a circle, that plane of Dura. So interesting. And then at the end of chapter 6, Dura, it's tucked away there. It's translated into English. You can't see it, but it corresponds there with that word dwell. No, that is the word dwell. And it means to encircle or to move in a circle. So yeah, some information there as well. I'll pause if anybody wants to capture that. But yeah, so Dura and Dura at the beginning and the end. So, okay, let's just zoom back and go back to where we were. So that's what I've done with the 360, the 120, tying them at the beginning and the end, and why I think it suits close of probation as well, and why I think it suits 2001. So pause there. That was a lot, maybe. Did anybody have any questions? Okay. So they're not the only numbers in this story. I mentioned 30 as well. And we haven't done 120 yet. Okay, let's look at 120. So that's the 120 princes. Started at 9:30. I've still got time. Okay. So 120. All right. So if you look for 120 in the Bible and see what it symbolizes, you can see there was the 120 years of Noah. So that's probationary time for the world. And there's some verses there. I won't read them all. But maybe, look at this one here. My spirit shall not always strive with people. Their days will be 120 years. So it's probationary time. There's some other passages there. I'll just try to do it a bit slower so people can just quickly have a little scan. So God determined to purify the world with a flood, gave them a probation of 120 years. A lot of these are about the flood. Okay. All right, so next one, the disciples at Pentecost, and they take a message to the world. There was 120 of them at Pentecost, and from there they took the message to the world. So we've got worldwide there. So there's different verses and passages about that, how they did that. So it's got the same theme of this whole world, worldwide happening here. Moses lived for 120 years. He can't enter Canaan, but he does get this panoramic view of the second Eden. So he was 120 years old. So you can see from there as well. Basically, he's reached that moment where, and if you say the test has come to an end, yeah, he gets this panoramic view of Canaan there, and then he dies. Abraham, his great test came when he was 120 years old. So some passages there about that. I'll pause if you want to have a quick look. A severe trial of his faith. There's a promise about his descendants and the amount of descendants to number as the dust of the earth. So worldwide, if you want to sort of look at it that way. The test was the most severe that could ever come to a human being. If he had turned from God, he would never have been registered as the parent of the faithful. So you see, like, I guess, a moment of success for him there at the close of probation, which, yeah, an outcome or like pass the test. 120 days before the harvest. So the lifetime of a plant, 4 months, which is 120 days. So we look at our line, we have the lifetime of the plant would finish at close of probation. So that would sit nicely with a symbol of 120 to place that at close of probation. So the 120 symbol comes at the beginning, but because I'm looking at this as a chiasm, that's why I'm tying them together, that you should be able to see 120 at the end as well. So hopefully that makes sense. The lifetime of the plant, even if you only look at that one, for it to be 120 days old at close of probation, then that would make sense. So yeah, sorry, so that's those two. Feel free to unmute if you do have any questions. The next number is 30. When we were reading through the story, I pointed that out to everybody because it's not at it's at this one. It's at 2019. It does appear at 2021 and Sunday Law in the story as well, because I think it's mentioned a couple of times, but it first shows up here at this 2019, as in when I put the verses in the right spots. Well, that's where it shows up. That's when they're planning this. They decide on 30 days. So I've marked it here at 2019. Symbols for 30 can mean readiness for service, being ready for service, can also represent betrayal, and it can also represent the crossing of the Jordan. Those are some symbols that we get when we look at the meaning of it. So I'll go over here and have a little look at some examples of 30. All right, so this is a plan to test Daniel for 30 days. So yeah, that's the verse where it comes from. And these are some examples of readiness for service. So priests began service at age 30. Jesus was ready for ministry at 30. Joseph stands before Pharaoh at age 30, and David begins to reign at 30. The betrayal bit, Jesus was betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. 30 pieces of silver represents a slave, the value of a slave. Got the reference there. And Zechariah tells that it's an insult. He writes about being insulted. So it's an insult to Jesus to be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. It's not just that it was not much money. It's like, it's associated with this, like, the worth of a slave. So I don't know if it's probably been a long time, but Elder Tess did mark that 30 pieces of silver in 2019. And if anybody was curious about where I can, you can just message me. I can point you to where she did that. And crossing the Jordan, Moses was mourned for 30 days and Aaron was mourned for 30 days. This happened at that time when they were going to cross the Jordan. So if we remember our other lines, crossing the Jordan is what we mark at 2019. Anyway, so it lines up well with the 30. All right, so is everybody okay? Greg, how are you going? Just checking in to see if people are...
Greg's actually having trouble speaking today. He's got a bad ear infection, so he may not be able to speak. Sorry.
All right. Feel free in the chat, Greg, if you want to. Otherwise, well, you can do both, but I will see if I can just check in with someone else. Rachel. Are you there? Chris, are you there? Rosie. George?
I've got a little question, if I could.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to give people a little space to have a little break because there's a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand. Was there any relevance to the praying of the 3 times as well?
Yeah, I'm going to look at that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, yeah, because we've got
I
a lot of
won't go there.
numbers. Yeah, there is. I think so. Yeah. So, yep.
Sorry, I didn't
How
mean
are you
to.
going anyway? No, that's fine. You're unmuted. I just want to check, like, are you, is it information overload? Are you going okay? Can I keep going? That was basically it.
I feel like I'm going okay, but I could only speak for me. So
Yep. Well, I haven't been able to get many people to unmute, so that will have
I'm
to do.
comfortable.
Okay, that's fine. Please, anybody speak up if you do feel it's going too fast or it's not clear or anything like that, because there's really no need to rush through this. But I just didn't want us to get, like, you can look at all those references. I can share the pictures later, and you can, if you want to look them up verse by verse. But I didn't want to sort of get so bogged down that we lose the big picture. Was that you, Molly?
Yeah, it was. I'm good.
You're good. Okay, great. Let's keep going then. All right. 6 and 7. Now, why 6 and 7? Okay, so just get our bearing. All right, now, has anybody noticed this before? It's something that I've noticed for a long time and always thought was odd. Just let me, I don't know, maybe not many people are talking today, but put in the chat or you can speak up if you've actually seen this yourself and thought it was strange, that there's a different amount of instruments mentioned in these verses. They've missed one. And can you spot which one it is? Maybe Lynn. There's a few people, those people who are happy to unmute, maybe I'll just ask them. So Lynn.
Hello, Catherine.
Oh, Debbie. Yeah.
Yeah, I just no. Just a note from Terry that was it's quite
I've seen
significant
it.
just to take note. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I've seen that. Thank you. I do speak pretty quick, and yeah, it's my personality. I think I'll try to slow down so people can understand as well. All right. So what's the missing?
You're asking about the missing instrument?
I am.
The
dulcimer.
Yes, the dulcimer.
Yep. Have you noticed that before, Kate or Lynn? Or is this the first time?
I have not personally.
No. Kate?
I have not either.
Okay. Well, I'm pointing it out to you. There's a missing instrument. Always seemed a bit funny to me. So I don't think it's accidental. I don't think the Bible's like that. So what are we going to do with that? I could count them. That's what I've done. So I've done 6 for one and 7 for the other. One of them says I've counted all kinds of music as an instrument. So as the 6th one, maybe somebody could argue we don't count that, and there'd be 5 and 6. You could do that. But for me, 6 and 7 makes more sense. What do we have as 6 and 7? So what do they mean? We can look at the meaning. We also know that those numbers are pretty big in our movement right now. We hear the words 6th and 7th nonstop at the moment. So that's also interesting. That's not clear. I'm talking about the 6th and 7th kingdoms. But number-wise and what they represent. So 6 and 7 can mean imperfect compared with or contrasted with perfect, or incomplete versus complete. It can represent humans' way versus God's way. It can represent work versus rest. It can represent servitude versus liberty. And that may not be all of the meanings, but they're the ones that I've put here, that I've pulled out as what they represent. So we mark these for whatever, what they apply as, but we would mark these here at Sunday Law 6 and 7. So take what we will from that. And I can take us over to here where I've looked at this in detail, just as some examples. Humans created on the 6th day. I might just pause there. You can just have a little read of the 6 verses 7. We've also got the 7 seals, 7 churches, oath, covenant. So interestingly, Solomon's gold in 1 year was 666 to 666 as well. All right, so that's 6 and 7. And in the story, these verses, when I had laid them out, they land here at Sunday Law Weymouth. This one here, the number 3, as Brendan mentioned as well, 3 times. Now, I just thought it was funny because, like, if you just read the Bible story, I don't think it picks up on this point about 3 times. You just sort of like, if you just read the Bible, I think you would just get to imagine that he's just done it once that day. They caught him on the first one and reported him. But I read this one, Prophets and Kings, and for an entire day, the princes watched Daniel. 3 times they saw him go into his chamber, and 3 times they heard his voice lifted. Why did they hang around all day to watch him do it 3 times? Like, why not just report him as soon as he did it the first time? Like a long time to sit around watching. But I would say it's probably so that, we get the symbol 3 from this. And so it means a test. It can also mean threefold. So let's just have a look at that. Tests that happen 3 times. Jesus was tempted 3 times. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And pair that up with lovest thou me 3 times. There was the vision of the Gentiles 3 times. That was a test for the movement. Balaam smites the donkey 3 times. Delilah asked Samson 3 times. God calls Samuel 3 times. Job's three friends were testing him. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were 3 people tested as well. You could even say the 3rd angel's message is a test as well. That's 3.
Catherine,
Yeah.
you could add to that under the tests, the cock crowed 3 times.
Thank you.
The story with Peter.
Yep. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So lots of tests which had to do with the number 3. Threefold as well, threefold union. The Godhead is threefold. The 3 angels' messages are threefold. So both of these, I think the number 3 can mean. So that one also ends up at the Sunday Law Waymark. That's where you see the number 3 happening. All right, so I'm just going to wrap up now with the summary of the whole lot. And I can share this picture with everybody if you want it to keep it as reference. Basically, so let's just start with what the 2nd angel's message is. So this is all of the chapters, all 4 chapters now. Babylon is fallen, that great city. Because it made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of its fornication. So we've got Babylon is fallen. This is what we take away themes from this, from the literal. The application comes from that. So from that, in the literal, when I looked at the story and the way it turned, and it was about who really has the power and who really has control. The first half, the king is throwing his weight around, but Daniel is going to receive the interpretation. And in the second half, the king now needs to sit at Daniel's feet, and he finds out that Babylon is destined to fall. So it's like this turning of who really has the power, who really has control. So that's a theme I get from this. Also, from the numbers, we get covenant. From the chapter 2 and 5, we get the themes about covenant or division, probationary time. There's baptism there we marked. And that's at this end, you know, we've got the fall of Babylon versus the restoration. We get symbols of restoration from the numbers as well, 2520, for example. Time is fulfilled. So all of these themes belong to these chapters. At the end of all this analysis, that's what I've come up with. The rest of this coloured bit is what we've already seen. It's just a summary of what happened and what the verses were that I allocated. So that's those chapters. And then for this one, the third angel's message, if anyone worships the beast and its image and receives its mark, they will drink of the wine of the wrath of God. So that's the third angel's message. So we know that's a theme. Another theme, the contrast of the characters. There's false and sneaky and rebellious versus the true and the righteous and the innocent. So whether you're looking at the princes or the king, there's some rebelliousness or some bad nature, bad character, and that's contrasted with the righteous, either Jesus or the righteous people in the stories. So that's a theme I get from this. At the beginning, due to some bad characters, there's a decree to worship the king or the kingdom. And in the second half, due to some good characters and signs of wonder, there's a decree to worship God. Numbers that we just looked at, we've got probationary time. So it's all 4 chapters have something to do with probationary time, and they all start off with that number. And we also see worldwide for this one. We didn't really see that in the second angel's message one, but in the third angel's message one, we see worldwide symbology with the numbers. We see readiness for service. So all of this is about, I guess, characters. So, you know, and we're part of this story, the movement. And the movement was 30 at 2019. We see betrayal, crossing of the Jordan there. And then with these other ones at Sunday Law, for this third angel message story, we see test, we see threefold, and we see perfect versus imperfect. Even the numbers will show you the same theme as the story. The story is contrasting the characters of the bad ones and the characters of the good ones. The numbers also are showing us, repeating that same theme. It's perfect versus imperfect. It's, you know, and I think 6 and 7 can be, yeah, maybe it can be applied in different ways as well, because we know, like, the 7th kingdom is the perfectly bad kingdom, maybe, or perfectly, you know, perfect kingdom for Satan. So you see that as well. But we see these same themes. I also was interesting that the numbers, the themes we get from the numbers are also the themes we get from the story itself, from just reading the story. So just, it's a beautiful thing to behold. I liked finding that, and I hope that you all enjoyed going through that with me and me sharing with you. And that brings that to the end. This is the end of what I'll present on this subject. I don't have more. So unless there was somebody, yeah, application would be the next step, but I don't have anything on that. But yeah, at least we can appreciate for now the symmetry of it all. I liked that. So I'll close in prayer, and then I can take any other questions if there are any. Dear God, we want to give you praise and glory and worship you, and say how much we admire you and love you. We thank you for prophecy and how it has broken open so many truths to us through diligent study and working together and having leaders and inspired and excellent teachers as well. We thank you that we are so privileged to have the understanding that we do have, even though a lot of things are still being opened up and being made clearer, and we still don't know a lot of things. We actually do know quite a lot of things, and I think it's just, we get so used to just knowing these things, but it is so amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you for this study. Thank you for what we can gain from that. And we just pray for each member here that they would be inspired and enlivened to have that expectation that things are coming to an end, and we are looking forward to a day where we are free from a lot of these troubles, and that we can implement a lot of the learnings that we have now and that we're understanding about politics, and we can actually make that useful and help the new world and do with it and fulfill our purpose. So we're just so grateful. So thank you, and we just pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.